Very good. Morning, we're back online, councillors. Before we go to agenda item 346, I just want to apologise to you all for the bad advice I gave at the start of the meeting around the correct location for reports that are tabled after the deadline for when a report must be made publicly available. And so the correct, instead of, as I said, that late tabled report being put in an updated agenda, it needs to, and we don't need a resolution for this because the Act is expressly clear, it needs to go as an addendum to the minutes, not the agenda. So you will see the minutes updated with that addendum, with the written report as it was presented to us at the meeting. So section, for those who follow along at home, section 254 of the Act is the area you need to review, specifically section 254F, and is immediately after section 254D, which also covers that same area. So 254D and F are where you need to go, and that will explain where I was erroneous in my interpretation. And all I was wrong with was where we put it. I just thought we went public somewhere else, but it actually has to be recorded in the minutes, which Debbie and I were just discussing with Brett Melinda at Morning Tea will mean in future any handouts that we get, any slideshows, we'll just capture that, provided it's a written document. Verbal reports probably not as relevant because the definition for a related report means a report or other document. So a verbal report is not a document. It's very hard to capture, other than the fact that clearly that does capture it. Anyone who's really keen to hear what's said can just go and watch that. So a bit of a meeting protocol thing to fix up there. 346. So if somebody moved that we received a report for review of the annual operational plan, please. Councillor Hanson, second Councillor Plum, those in favour. Carried. I'm in all of your hands. Anything to discuss?
This report's a year in review.
Mr Mayor, this is the final report for the 22 year.
I'm realistically, it is as is presented. I think if councillors have got to want to draw our attention to individual things or officers, the most relevant thing of this is a separate report later on, the carry forward stuff, you know, the things that aren't completed. So if it's completed, it's done.
I just wanted to clarify, Mr Mayor, under theme 5 governance, which is the last page, where we've got the asset management plans developed for each class. I've got completed there, but that really should read asset registers completed, because the asset management plans haven't been completed. So
Through Mr Mayor, yeah, I was just going to ask about whether they were what they were.
Happy to see that amended then, that completed dash asset register is into section 5.3.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So 3.5, the asset management, is that the one that the audit committee wants? Is that the one that's due in June?
Transport.
Asset management.
Mr Mayor, the asset registers what the auditors required by the 30th of June of the asset management plans. However, because they weren't completed, they gave us an extension till 22nd of August to have those presented to them. So by next week we have to have those asset registers to the auditors by Monday.
So the registers themselves are now complete.
It's just that they have to be reconciled to our template.
Right, questions further?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, possibly a question for the new operational plan, but I think from memory it says that those asset management plans aren't going to be ready or to be provided to council until the third quarter. So that's next year.
We're hoping it's before then.
I would hope so too, because they've been bubbling away for quite a while, and a bit of a bugbear because it talks to there about it informing budgets and saving, ideally saving money here, improving process, getting more bang for our dollar, and it's something just seems to be dragging on. I think it's something of a higher priority than maybe we've given it consideration for.
The new operational plan, of course, is council's document, so we could set an earlier timeframe should council be of a mind. Of course, we've received advice about does shortening the timeframe affect the quality of the document, but council may sooner see something sooner rather than later and work on it as except that it will have further edits as it becomes a more mature document. Councillor Peebles?
No, I'm right. Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gleeson? Jensen?
Mr. Mayor, I think sometimes maybe in our budget we're taking on too much because there's a lot of stuff there that is still works in progress, and we've got a later item where we're hopefully carrying over. I think we need to be a lot more realistic about, especially in the current climate and the more recent climate, what we can deliver, because we're saying to the community we're going to do this in this budget, and at some point along that budget I would hope that we come to a realisation that we're not gonna, and we need to better administer that fact that we're going to have to roll a project over, or like, it wasn't really that important. If we haven't done it in the 12-13 months up to now, then yeah.
Sorry, go Greg. I've got thoughts on that.
And that Councillor Arthur has been an issue with council for a very long time, or all councils.
Yeah.
And we have tried to improve that process. But a number of those projects are funded. So Works for Queensland's over 3 years. We put it in the budget in year one, knowing that we've got 3 years to do it. So even though it's carried forward, it's still within its, I suppose, the allowable time frame to do that work. It's just that we have to nominate the projects up front to the government and say this is what we're going to do. We put it in the first year budget, same as our last CIP. You know, it was over varying time frames, 18 months, 2 years. So you put the projects in the first year, knowing that some of those will be carried over into the following year because we've got that amount of time to spend the money.
There's two observations. The first one I want to make is around that. I think, and that's either take on too much or it's a failure of presentation process. We should acknowledge that some projects at the very commencement are going to overlap 2 years and put a percentage in year 1 and a percentage in year 2 is a clear indicator that this is a project that's going to straddle 2 financial years. And then we're not over-promising and under-delivering on paper when we knew at the outset the job's going to take longer. So, yep, righto, we know that. We're going to definitely try and start that job this year. Who knows in the current climate whether we're going to get it 20%, 50%, but if we allocate a notional figure each year, then at least there's a paper-based trail to say we accepted that. The second point, though, goes back to your original point that I wanted to make is, I think we do pull on too much, but I think there's things that could happen that don't. Smaller projects that we're going to talk about in a minute in the carried forward stuff, that just should happen. It took too long to get to that, and it's, as much as anything, probably a reflection on staffing resources, but we can, that needs to be a factor in the initial budget decision, do we or not do it. There's only so many people that can project manage all of our projects, have they got too much? But there are some of them little ones that should have already happened. I don't think we can use the excuse that I'll rephrase that. I'm confident that it's not simply because we've got too much that some of those projects are being carried forward. But then on the flip side, we're in an unprecedented supply chain crisis as well. But that's not, I would be very hesitant to support anyone suggesting that's the underlying cause for all of our overruns. It may contribute to some of them or a greater percentage, but it ain't the reason why.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, it has a flow-on effect. It may specifically affect this project, but that means this other one that's not directly related has an issue because this one's overrun or whatever. And I think, as you said, it's about the perception of, we might know that it's a 2-year or 3-year funding stream or project, but we don't necessarily, show that, and it's about managing that perception that, because you can look at that quite simply and say, that for all intents and purposes looks like a 1-year project, but we know we can spend it over 3 years, and that's what I mean, like at some stage through the year, we're going to know that one's just not going to happen, or only a quarter of it, what we planned is going to happen. We're right to do it next year. It's just a matter of graphically representing or communicating that, because we have some members in our community that go through this in as much detail as councillors and officers and bring up certain specific points about a project that.
But that's very simple, because we present a 3-year budget, especially a capital works budgets there, just spread the money over 2 or 3 years so that you know it's ongoing.
Yeah. Federal and state government budgets, when they hand them down, are very light on anything. Like they budget for a 4-year cycle. So you're fortunate if you're in a program that's committed to, you know it's right for 4 years. But they do outer years. The outer years, as they call it, the budget of things out 4 years. So if they say a 6-year program, you get very nervous, unless it's pre-funded, like a significant amount of it's front load funded in the first 4 years. Because if it's backload funded, that outer 2 years is not costed. It's nothing. It's a non-event other than it's an indication or an indicative thing. We might get to that. We are in that sort of in-between scenario, whereas, and some local governments are much more advanced, so a Brisbane City or a Sunshine Coast, their budget can be handed down with more confidence about the program delivery over 2 or 3 years, or project construction, or service delivery, but we're still trying to reach a degree of maturity around the longevity of a project outside of something as simple as road construction, which is something we've been historically very good at doing, on time and on budget, and have got better at. I agree. That's where I was really keen as this council came together to introduce that 3-year rolling. I wanted 4, but I know 4 is just too hazy for local government, as small as ours. But 3 years, we know our funding opportunities out that far pretty well. And what we're seeing more and more is a little bit of latitude from grant programs to go outside the 12-month cycle. So you might get 18 months or 3 years to complete it. Well, let's use that to really help us deliver
the best benefit to our communities.
instead of rushing.
So our project scoping should be giving you those timelines when we believe it can happen as well. Our quarterly budget reviews gives us a chance then to amend each quarter, so while it's a little bit of work, it actually gives you a true guideline about how you're achieving and what you're not going to achieve. So council can intervene earlier to say, we want to reset our priorities.
Oh, and just that presentation, like it's, the percentages on there are purely on a monetary factor. Like we could have done work at the start and spent 80% of the money, or we could be through 80% of the project and only spent 20% because we know that it is back end, or the costs are back ended, or very few projects are bell curved with their spending.
A lot of councils now are actually breaking their funding down month by month, so we're going to actually target, we know rates are going to come in this month and that month, so you'll see a revenue hit.
Yeah.
But you'll always see our spend, so we work out our monthly spends this much, where are we going? So a lot of councils are reporting back quite regularly about, is there exceptions, what's the impediments? We'll see that when we talk about plan. We may have ordered a bit of kit 6 months ago and we've got no idea when it's going to turn up.
Yeah. And that's,
We can't do it because it's outside of us.
a lot of that stuff is outside of our direct or indirect control.
Well,
But if we're not, in July, if we're not looking for tenders, or like if we know that big yellow stuff, there's a 12-month order, like if we're still not ticking off back then and we're leaving it till January or December when, well, it's Christmas, things are shutting down, we're not helping ourselves in getting ahead.
so I know the asset management plans will help us add some maturity to this, but that's where I think we can. Like, if we know through the council's approved process for replacement of plant on ours, especially big yellow plant, replacement of plant, but even white fleet's not any easier to get at the moment. In fact, I'd suggest I could get you a grader quicker than I could get you a pilot. In fact, I know that you can. That if we know what they are and we've got an endorsed asset management strategy, we can approve the acquisition of those things in not necessarily the financial year it's going to be received. Like, we could have a resolution come to us in March for a grader in October next year. In March this year for a grader that we know is going to hit its end of life in October 23. The scheduling of the decision making is just as big a problem as is the scheduling of the acquisition. Like, there's a problem we say we're putting the order in too late when we adopt the budget in July and we put it in September, October, but realistically that's 3 months. That's not too bad. They've got other stuff to do. But if we've got an endorsed asset management plan that says we're going to replace graders at 10,000 ounces, absolutely, categorically stand by that, and we can track that, which our tech officers do. They get the hourly readings and that informs their service delivery, service schedule. So we're doing that. We'll know within a week or two when that grade is going to hit 10,000 hours. So 18 months in advance, anyone ordered. Sit it in Hastings build schedule, the lead time might only be 6 months for a grader, but you can still place the order 18 months in advance so that you've got your slot booked before you get to it. So that's where asset management plans, in terms of plant management, are critically important that we get it, because then we just give officers, it's in the budget, it's in the outer years of the budget, we know when it is. The decision to acquire can be made outside the 12-month period that it's going to be made in, and that...
It's what triggers the decision.
Yeah.
We've got a schedule that says this.
Now, unfortunately, I sort of actually back officers in not making pre-decisions, because the budget's probably one of the more political, in this council's lifetime, the plant's been the thing that we drill down to in the most detail. We get a detailed list and then we just cut. That's what, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but we've got everything else settled that far in advance that they could nearly go and start work on the capital works projects, but the plant items we're still working on right up until budget day. So if I was a plant officer in this council, there's not a way I would touch anything until we'd had an adopted budget. So I wouldn't be touching it until July, because then you've got authority to go and do so, because we were taking and adding stuff off that list, which is our prerogative to do so, but mainly because we're not guided by anything other than a bit of a understanding that the senior staff at the mechanics and the fleet manager had 2 or 3 years ago, and we're still working with that loose thing. We need to tighten that up, be confident in our process, and suggest this is the parameters guided by asset management principles for fleet replacement. Fleet upgrades and acquisition is a different thing altogether. So if we decide we want to transition from 8 graders to 9, whole new decision. But when we're just talking about maintaining the status quo and receiving the best value for money, as Councillor Peoples talks about, like can we delay an extra 12 months, but also the best return from our plant, you know, as in it's not spending more time broken down later in life and that sort of stuff. That's where that's guided by that AMP. I think we can solve a lot of that plant acquisition stuff just by having a more rigid, informed asset management plan for asset. And that means that we can actually divide, you know, obviously we still approve it on an annual basis, but the list then presented to us in accordance with our replacement expectations, not just a list, and then we impact on that through what we decide when we're in our budget workshops. Because inevitably, it changes. Hasn't yet, Brett, not since I've been there. It's changed every time, quite substantially. In fact, we shrunk nearly 1.5 million out of it 2 budgets ago, which I must say has worked. To be honest, it saved our bottom line $1.5 million. And we aren't in substantially worse off position in terms of fleet management. I haven't noticed expenses rising through the roof as a result of deferring a few cars back 12 or 18 months. We're a long way from our review, but I think it's a good thing you raised, Councillor. Councillor Plant, anything with this?
No, I can't see anything this year.
That's all right.
No, except
Yeah, I know. Did we vote? No. Those in favour of...
yes, we did, thank you.
Yeah, answer that one.
Staff are all happy with this recommendation? Fits with Chris, if I can ask you, I've lined this up with your reports. Expectation for practical completion of jobs on both Cap Highway and Buckle and Aramac. This looks like it's lines with that about 4 or 5 days prior.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Estimated, so
Yeah.
that gives the fleet, gives them a couple of days of gratitude if something goes wrong, but also gives them a chance to bring all their gear back to town.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Inside workforce, district managers? All good.
I wanted to work through, but we'll break it down.
Those in favour, mover, please, Councillor Plum, Councillor Hanson. Just a moment, can I just adjourn for a moment?
It's treated exactly the same.
Oh, where'd you go?
Just while we're still on there, sure.
No, you're on air. I'm adjourning again. Okay, councillors, the reason for the adjournment was for me to seek advice from officers, and I agree that in the purpose of, just to be very transparent, this resolution has the very direct impact on staff that it affects their leave balances, where it's like we're saying that that's annual leave. I am aware of a number of councillors who have related parties in the direct employ of council. I just would now like to provide the opportunity for any councillor present to provide to give the opportunity to declare a declarable conflict of interest should they so wish.
Through Mr Mayor, I will declare.
Councillor Rogers is declaring a declarable conflict of interest on the basis of her husband's employment with council. I move that Councillor Rogers be allowed to remain in the room and participate in the debate and vote on this resolution. Councillor Gleeson foreshadowing that I think you have the same one.
I was going to second it.
Yeah. I'm going to hold asking for a seconder. Councillors present that wish to declare this, please indicate by show of hands. 3. So, sorry, okay, so you're right. Very good. I'll ask that councillors, in the basis that I know you are, and the room is clear of your intent to declare that Councillor Peoples and Hanson don't participate in the vote. Well, they don't technically have one till they do it, do they? I'm still going to ask that you don't, and I'll let the local government department smack me on the knuckles rather than you two. So, seconded Councillor Gleeson that Councillor Rogers remain in the room. Debate. Those in favour?
As soon as you paused the meeting, I had the same thoughts, and I'm just struggling to get my head together, Mr Mayor.
Okay, I'm happy to just hold the vote. My reason for believing very firmly that this is a declarable, not prescribed, is on the basis that it's not direct.
I'll go against, Mr Mayor.
Okay, the vote, I'll call the vote again. Those in favour? Against? It's carried 3-1. Councillor Arthur voting against. Councillor Peoples, you wish to declare?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'm going to declare, but I might declare it prescribed and just leave the room. But anyway, Mr Mayor.
I'm struggling to see the definition of a prescribed. I could nearly accept the argument for Councillor Rogers being her partner, but I can't see that. I think officers help.
I'm not sure which relationship you're talking
Daughter.
Order. Look, I understand, Mr Mayor, that you can see it as a, declared, but if you say it's prescribed and leave the room, you've got no issue. Well, I've got no issue.
Well, I'm going to afford you the same right, then.
Yeah,
I think I'm
I
going to
think
change mine.
Melinda's got a,
I do, because I thought I was losing 4. I was fighting hard there, councillors, because I thought I was going to lose 4 of you and I wasn't going to let this roll because then I didn't know what we'd do. So, okay.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the issue I have is the close associate is a spouse, parent, child or sibling.
yeah.
And it's that bit about the impact on is it a high proportion or a majority of the community, whereas this only affects council workers.
Which differs from community to community as to which...
Yes, the definition of community.
Narrowback is the whole bloody community, with due respect to my language, sorry, whereas here it is a substantially smaller.
Yeah, and it depends on whether you mean the community of BRC or a town or the regional council. That's where I was struggling to find the right bit of the legislation on the little bit of gibber here about. I thought I had a problem, but I just wanted to make sure why I had the problem.
Yeah, under prescribed, it lists the items that you can be prescribed under. And where's our red phone?
It's just going to be clear.
It would be under the contract relating to the contract with council, because
Well, technically their
it would be a
employment is a
donation,
contract. So
relates
that,
to a contract, a DA, or what was
It's really conflict. No. Sorry. This is
Is declarable, his contract closed now.
Does it relate to contractors?
Well, it doesn't affect,
You don't have a problem, he's not taking on.
no, well,
Councillors, we are tying up time that is not worth it. I move that we rescind the motion previously entered into by myself, provide Councillor Rogers with cover. I move that we rescind that motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gleeson moves that. Those in favour? Motion is carried 4-0. This is not the resolution to lose this over on protocol. I firmly believe that it is, but I'm just going to move on by rescinding that and allow you to make your own declarations. Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I will declare a prescribed conflict of interest to be on the safe side.
Thank you.
And
Councillor Peebles?
Mr Mayor, I'll be declaring a prescribed conflict of interest and I'll be leaving the room.
Councillor Rogers on the basis of her spouse, Councillor Peebles on the basis of his child, Councillor who, sorry, Hens.
And through you, Mr. Chair, I'll declare a prescribed conflict of interest and leave the room on the grounds of my dual works for council.
Thank you. Any further declarations? Maintain the decorum. Righto. Thank you, Councillor.
oh, sorry, Mr Mayor, just a point of clarity. I work for a contractor of council,
This resolution only deals with
staff.
staff.
So even though it might have a minor impact on,
There's nothing saying the
Scheduling
contractors
work.
can't work through that.
yes,
This is us shutting down the office.
yes,
For that period of
and,
time.
well, and
And the other.
inside and outside, yeah.
You know, God help whichever individual in the community decided to place an OIA complaint against any one of those three councillors, because this is flagrantly ridiculous. But anyway, they have covered themselves and left, and it'd be the first time we've done that from memory. So, for the hawks at home, go back for the last 3 years and you'll catch them all on the same resolution every time.
It's general business at council, it's just normally we've got stuff from them.
From recent experience, I would argue that.
That's right.
Through you, Mr Mayor.
So we're going to move with this, and we're now going to have to call for a new seconder because Councillor Hanson no longer remains in the room.
Hold on, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Arndt is happy with that. Debate? Yes, Councillor?
Sorry? Vote, you said.
No, I said debate, but if you want to vote, those in favour? 4-0, bring them back. My God, eh? If anyone would have thought which resolution we'd argue on the most today, it wasn't that one. Never ceases, you can never pick them.
I guess the environment we're in, it's in everyone's conscious and
Oh, and I never give it a thought until you pause the meeting and then.
You just when you walk. Sorry, Sarmad, you've had an elongated stay since morning tea, but much joy involved in all of it, I'm sure. Sarmad, welcome home. Or welcome back to Australia, but soon to become your new home. Has been your home for some time, and congratulations on everything that has transpired whilst you've been away. I call on you to present your report, but first of all, do I have someone to move that we receive that? Councillor Peebles, seconded Councillor Plum. Those in favour? 7-0. Okay, Summit, anything you'd like to draw us to before I open for questions?
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, just the cash at bank and this council sustainability is in 5 months for the second consecutive month, which is
Fantastic, isn't it, considering that our cash position contracted slightly month on month to be able to maintain the sustainability matrix that you've developed is, it's good to see that able to happen with a contraction in cash.
and through you, Mr. Mayor, the metrics and the payments and all those schedules I use I've made it more realistic to what it was after reviewing end of last year. So this 5 months is a better picture than what it was in May or April last year.
Okay.
Like, it covers a lot of costs which some overheads I didn't have covered before.
While we're on cash, can I just ask you, have you got the actual agenda in front of you? Yep. So our cash position's consistent on the page 95, where we've got cash of 19 million. Now this could be a date issue, so that's what I was trying to check. 19,732. But then on page 101, in the statement of cash flows, the cash at the end of the reporting period is 16,388,000. Is that just a different date for each report?
Which page, sorry, Mr. Mayor?
Page 101.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, we put in the financial reports for the month of May, because it's kind of an audited requirement under the legislation to put financial reports to the council for each month.
Okay.
So there's, Mr. Mayor, so there's actually two financial reports. There's the one from the June meeting, which was missed, and then so page 100 to 102 is actually to the end of May.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I had that question because 95 says June 30, page 100 and 102 says 31st of May, and then 103 and one of the later ones says 31st of July.
101 says nothing.
Yeah, I got a little bit confused.
Sorry, so and 103
Flows
is
through
the current one. Because under the Act, it's a requirement that you present a financial statement every month. And we didn't do it in June, so we're just covering ourselves with that.
Yeah.
Right, in June, that we received the budget, we were that swamped with reports. So yeah, okay, right. So
It's actually page 105 is the correct bank cash balance.
104, isn't it?
104.
Yeah, 104. So 19,535 and 19,732. So yeah, it's a couple $100,000 difference. Okay, right. They've clarified that. And on the graph for maintenance works expenditures on the bottom of page 98, realise that this is really preliminary, but it just highlighted something that I really want to understand. Whilst it's easy to get to, because once we get further into the year, these things fill up and they're not as obvious. So we've got the green box, for those of you who can see colours, indicates what we spent year to date, and the budget is in purple or blue or mauve, whatever you want to call it. Plant operations are at 309,000 and rural road maintenance is at 110,000. Is that rural roads figure exclusive of the plant operations that have gone into it? Or is that plant operations for plant operations other than those included in the rural roads?
Just having a look, Mr. Mayor.
So the plant operations is the maintenance of the plant, depreciation and maintenance of plant.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, these three graphs represent the maintenance of the plant. So rural roads maintenance would have their apportionment of plant which was used to do them up. So it's actually plant operation maintenance.
It have plant hire.
So, but there's a cost of that maintenance attributed through the unit charge internally to do the rural roads, is that right?
The utilization of the plant
Yeah.
and whatever incurs in the on cost is a part of the rural roads.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I just want to, because it's something that, does everyone get what I'm saying there? I think, so this is looking at maintenance and the cost that we've spent on rural roads to date is 110,000. That includes an on cost for plant hire, not maintenance. But within our plant hire rate is a calculation for plant maintenance. So don't add them things together as well. They are things that should be viewed in isolation. They're assets of ours that we are maintaining strictly in isolation from each other. That right?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, you can't add them together.
They won't add up.
They're not going to add up because one's got a cross charge internally, and it has to, like under the approved method that we're using for cost recovery, and we had that debate with QTC last year. They believe ours is too high. I fundamentally believe it's spot on because it truly tells us what it costs to maintain them roads. I think it's best management practice what we're doing, but just when it's so small, it's easy to pick up on that, and I just wanted to clarify that I had the correct understanding. Next page, sorry to monopolise councillors, but I will come to you. Next page, Samad. This is what happened. You have 1 month away and I've got so many questions for you. No, I just want to worry, and this may not be directly for you, and it possibly is a rollover thing with rates. Is it a worry that we've got 12 months of rates at 209,000, like double what we've got out for 2 years? Is there something, or is that just simply because we've rolled over and we've got none in this current year? Is that a reporting thing?
We haven't issued the rate notice for this year,
No, it's next month.
so that 1 year is last financial year.
It's in turn you've doubled the amount of
Is our trend though that's always a bit higher, and before it gets to the second year it's shrunk down? That's what I haven't done my own homework to answer that question. Sorry, the rest are about what I remember them to be, but I just thought that was a big gap from 2 to 1, and the reason I asked it, of course, is if you think about what has happened retrospectively, it's about a 5% increase in rates last year. Is that a reflection in rates in arrears? For real rates, anyway. Sorry, Samad, I cut you off then.
No, Mr. Mayor, I'm trying to look at last year's June figures so that I can look better.
While Samad's looking that up, we're still waiting for the department to do the transfer of those old outstanding properties.
Some of the 18 at the bottom, you mean? Yeah.
Which is why they're still appearing there. It's a very long process.
Look, I'm the main one who keeps raising this bugbear. I just want to get in front of rate in arrears before it becomes a problem, because we know none of us like to see those rate foreclosures or anything like that. And also, we've got to track the impact of rate rises as a council. That's our responsibility. Now, probably the main thing I need to see, because urban rates didn't go up last year, like realistically, they went up $20. That's not going to be the reason for this. But is there a significant portion of that was rural rates, and is there a rate pain that we're not, we haven't heard any feeling of it, and it simply could be the time of year we may see that shrink when the next rates card is issued. I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, the number of assessments are more, but the total we had last year was about 263 for previous year. So it would
We
be,
only got 135.
might be on.
Okay.
We'll have to further look into it, Mr. Mayor, to see which assessments have been paid and how they've been paid.
Could we perhaps throw that as a new request, Samad, to have a look at the exception reporting for those? I'm not worried about anything more than 3 years, because we know there's substantial issues there. Or I'm not even really worried about the 2, but that current 1 year breakup, just on a type of assessment basis, so that we can track where the rate pain's being felt the most. And it's not necessarily pain, like I'm jumping at shadows here in my language, but potentially, but I think we're better using the data to warn us as it's unfolding than waiting until it's too late. Because our rate base, or rate balance in arrears, is very good and has been very good over the last couple of years, and shrinking every time. Like Paul, I think you gave us some figures about that stuff 4 or 5 months ago. It's substantially better. And the minute you think you've got it right is the minute it'll start going the other way. So that's why I just would like to stay in front of it. And then on the bottom of page 105, but this could be answered by your earlier question, we've got annual leave liability of 1.56 million. Trade payables. Now, is this a journaling thing? I just note that as a different figure, though, in our sustainability matrix, where our,
Which page, sorry, Mr.
so the bottom of 105, the financial performance from at 31 July. And then the trade payables comment there is that we've got annual leave liability of 1.56. Whereas in our spreadsheet at the front, we've got it at 3,120,000.
That includes, Mr. Mayor,
long service leave.
yes, Mr. Mayor.
And that's not referenced in annual leave. Right, so that's okay. So that means we can break our 3,120,000 down to being 1.56 annual, and whatever the difference is LSL. Is that right? Give or take 20 or 30,000.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do we have a portion in there for sick leave and all that sort of stuff? Or we just pay it as it comes up, or do we budget for it?
We don't accrue.
It's a year.
Under accounting standards, we don't accrue sick leave. I mean, we accrue it internally, but
Yeah.
we don't report it in the
Financially.
financials.
This figure, Mr. Mayor, is 1.58 annual leave and 1.53 long service leave. But I deducted that figure in this one, so it would be a couple of hundred up and down.
Yep. No, yeah, I mean, that month to month, you can't, I'm not worried about the adjustment from a month to month basis. I'm just trying to get my head around that. So it's roughly the same, roughly 50-50 annual leave, long service leave. Thank you.
Because we always have a difference about of 800 to 1 million in when we calculate that 5-month sustainability graph. Because we don't put 6 months till we get to 6 months, but there's definitely a gap between the figures. Like if we can achieve 5 months in, for example, 14 million, we might have 14.8 in bank, but we can only show 5 months in the sustainability graph.
Yeah.
So,
Because you can't show that extra accrued leave until it's physically arrived, but you know that it's 5/6 of the way there. Okay. All right, I'll shut up. Sorry, councillors. Further questions? Councillor Up. Councillor Plum. Councillor Place. Councillor Peake. Councillor Lodge. It's lucky I called their name. I was doing lunch. Right. So, Matt, anything else in that report before we go to projects?
yeah,
I'll put you on the rack enough, you reckon? Righto.
it's fine.
352, can I ask somebody to move that we receive the project progress report? Councillor Peoples, second by Councillor Rogers, those in favour?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor, are we a little bit horse before the cart? Because we're accepting the report with those carried forward projects, but we haven't voted on carrying forward the projects? Or does that not matter on a,
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we can do the carry it forward first and then, because this is, most of this report is very new and all these projects are still
I'm just asking a question, I'm not sure whether
I know where you're
it
coming
makes any
from.
difference or.
I know where you're coming from. We're only receiving, the next report is a decision report, this one is only receiving for noting. So, I'm ambivalent either way. I'm happy that we received this, and obviously data that's in this will be informed by the decision of the next one, and then it'll be up, like it's not going to be updated if we did it in reverse in time for us to receive it today. So I'm happy that we receive it as it is with the indication of which the following report will confirm. We still need to provide you the opportunity to have questions about anything unrelated to those carry forward projects. So because this has got the new stuff in it, whereas the next ones, we're going to concentrate our decision around what's carried forward. It's not the next report either, it's not the 8th away. There it is. Well, it's not going to be. Because after we do this, I'm going to ask you to jump and do that straight away, because they follow on from each other, don't they? Unless you want to do the operational plan first. But part of what you're going to carry forward influences your operational plan.
I'll do the carry forwards.
Yeah. So I'll foreshadow that we'll jump ahead.
Considering that two of the projects that are carrying forward is the sculpture trial and
Okay, you've already declared on this, right?
yeah, right, that was only to receive report.
Okay, so for 352, we still are only receiving the report?
Right,
It's when we do the next one that there's decision, so you're going to change
okay.
when we get there for the minutes. Are you happy to vote in favour of receiving that report, Councillor Arthur, given you?
Yeah. I just had just a general query about whether it I don't think it makes any material difference. It was just a query that I had
Good work.
in back in mind.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, we jumped the gun by putting those things in.
That's fine. Can we get a comment on anything unrelated to carry forward? I think everything's at 0% almost, so it's not going to be much. We've got everything.
It's all very new.
Right. Should I have a procedural resolution, please, to move to agenda item 355? Councillor Arthur moves. Councillor People seconds. Those in favour? Carried. Councillor Rogers.
I think, we're making decisions on I'll be leaving.
Councillor Rogers, due to her personal interest relating to the sculpture trail, has declared a prescribed conflict of interest and left the room.
So, Mr Mayor, that is of the Councillor Rogers' opinion is that it's not ordinary business.
Yeah, it's not my opinion, but it is hers, yes. The budget decision. And I indicated that to you at the start of the meeting.
Yeah.
And I stand by that. And this time, unlike others, it's not being approved out of an email it's an open meeting.
Mr Mayor, in abundance of caution, I'll declare.
Councillor, can I ask, though, where, like,
Mr Mayor, it's just the OIA complaint and now that it's been forwarded on and the issue that they have on the interpretation of general business. If I've got a councillor in the same chamber that is of the opinion I'm sorry, Mr Mayor, I'm a bit gun-shy, isn't it? And it's affected my council stuff for the last couple of months. I thought I was getting over it, but
if we,
Trying to get around where it's an issue.
well, a number of projects there, the council, I believe, a close associate of his would
Be supplying projects.
or possibly, or
which is no different to when we handed the budget down in June.
All we're doing is deciding to continue the projects into this year. We've already decided on the projects.
Yeah.
So you're not actually
but the issue with my complaint is their definition of ordinary business, where I differ significantly, and yeah. So yes, an abundance of caution, I will declare a conflict of interest and due to my employer and leave the room.
Is anyone else doing that? Yeah, I'll see. People, have you got anything?
Well, we're just discussing carried forward now, Mr Chair.
serious issue, not you're second guessing yourself every time project comes up.
But it's clearly a budget discussion. Like it says, the headline for this report is budget carried forward. Like,
But I think, Mr Mayor, the wording of the resolution needs to approve those projects to be carried forward.
yeah, not to approve the awarding of the contract, which is what the,
Is it just maintaining budgets?
But it does affect Councillor Arthur's employer, whether if those projects, whether they get carried forward or not, does affect his income.
if we had to make this decision when we're handing the budget down, Yes, it'll have exactly the same impact. So this is a budget amendment. And like, you only have a prescribed COI if the matter under discussion relates to a contract with council. And there's no contracts going to.
It's a budget program.
Oh, the OIA is just hamstringing, it's beyond belief. Right, they're out. They're already out, there's nothing I can do about it, only reminisce
They're
over
called.
old days. Yeah, but I mean, these sort of things can cost us the ability to function when you've got. Righto, let's go.
Councillors, you want to run through the carry forward one by one?
Start with goal one.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to declare too.
What for? How? I need you to explain to me how. Find the area here that you that relates to you or a close associate, because I'm struggling with them too, and I'm struggling even more with you.
Well, when I delve down and have a look at these in the yellow, the carry forwards, which we're working on presently, there is a mower there that will be supported with Mudabara Depot, which I could possibly quite long have a contract with him.
A mower. Where is there a mower?
That's in the plant program.
Yep. So it's still carried forward.
The plant program being ordered. No, it's already done, it's ordered and done. So
It's been ordered.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, raw boy.
So sorry to tell you, you may not have got the.
You don't understand.
You're just trying to find out whether you got it or not.
No, it's been ordered ages ago. It was ordered. It's crazy we're second guessing something. So it's in your plant program, which you approved as a plant program. So. Back to the top, men sheds awning in Alpha, that's still going ahead, Damon, it's works for Queensland. Yes. And it's in the process.
Yeah, but in Damien's report here, in about 6 hours' time, there's a lot of reference to there's not enough money in the budget to do it.
Correct.
If you want to have a look at the details, flip to District Manager Alpha Jericho report on page 382 here, so that will be page, no, yes. Must be 371, are you? You are, page 135. Why we all should be in the room. Well, this is exactly why this is a budget discussion.
Still, is a budget discussion.
I know it's a budget discussion. No one can tell me otherwise, and if they do, they're wrong.
It's works for Queensland money.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a councillor in this that has an issue with works for Queensland before, but well, he'd walk out on this anyway because there's concrete floor, Scott. Yeah, right. Well, I can probably agree, but what you need to understand is Damien's put in here to do the whole scoped $20,000 project is now going to cost, on receipt of quotes, $34,856.13.
And that's also with a
$2,000 donation.
donation.
It's actually going to cost $36,000, but the cost to council will be $34,000.
It'll
The
actually-
option is if you remove the concrete floor and just do the awning, it'll cost you $25,000, which is over budget anyway. So we have to make a decision. Are we continuing? Are we continuing in totality, or are we just revising the scope of the project?
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
Just a question, Damien, what is the size of the awning?
It goes out, it's 16 metres or 6 metres. So it's the same width of the actual front of the shed, and then it goes out 6 metres. So it's an open awning for them.
And your quotes, they're from suppliers.
That's correct. This has gone through the independent review process. Yep.
Just, is it worth looking at that shady character style shed? Because I know they're a hell of a lot cheaper than that. There's an awning rather than an awning up. It's only a thought, Mr Mayor, yeah.
So the concrete slab option's $10,000 for
Yes. And that's just to, otherwise, yeah, it'd be around the 25,000 with just going with what's, they've got I think it's a 2 metre apron that comes out from the front of their shed. So this will be the whole project done at one time with the higher price.
What funding's left in Works for Queensland that could be, like, we've allocated a project to the total of that amount. Is there any project that's come in under budget?
There'll be a variation. We've got some that are over by a bit, some are under.
It's just Jenny's got works. There are projects that have come up.
So we're not going to make a decision on the, we don't have an agenda item to make the decision on which way to go with the awning, but we can make the budget decision to increase it, which would then mean the officer has the power to do it. So whatever we authorise today, we know what we've been quoted. So we can go, yep, righto, we'll make it 35,000, and then those vendor panel quotes can be actioned, or we'll make it 26,000, or whatever.
Can I just ask?
To you, Mr Mayor, you could probably just have a look down and find that there's another Works for Queensland project in the Jericho area for a cemetery fence. It's actually underspent by 7,500, which those funds haven't been reallocated anywhere. There's a couple of overspends. So between the programs, there's another one for the Muddabara Rec Ground that's underspent.
How much by?
7,415. It's just below the mention there. You'll see it in green.
I'm sorry, on that same
On the
report.
same page, mentions. Oh, I hope I'm on the right page.
No, I can just quickly.
Yeah, there are. And then there's the Memorial Hall in Muddabara as well.
Rec grounds camping. This is a different report. Okay, we're not looking at the same thing.
Are we not looking at the same report?
No.
Okay, what am I looking at?
No, you guys are.
I'm looking at the
it's
progress
just council-
report 2022 final.
Yeah, sorry,
One.
councillors are looking at something different.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Under the caravan parks, the third project, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, there's no caravan parks though on our report.
Oh. So it's, I'm looking at the agenda.
Yeah, no, so am I.
So 3.55. That's the report, I think.
It's on the agenda.
Yeah, it's community support, community halls. Is that what you've all got?
Yeah.
Councillors, what have you got? Goal 1 goes community support, community halls.
Have you gone to 355?
Yeah, that's where that came from.
Caravan parks are all between community support and community halls.
Oh well, it's just me, forget about me. Alright, so what's our net?
Where'd you get yours from?
So we know what it's going to cost, what do we want to do? Thank you, Sammy. What are we going to do?
We're going to complete it.
Sorry?
We're going to go.
We want to complete it? Councillor Hanson wanted to look at alternative options. I just wonder if we, because we've already gone to, we'd have to go back to market, which we can do.
Only if we haven't got the money to go forward. If we haven't got the money to go forward, I would like to at least look at an alternative option.
If we, so I think we probably do have the money if we use the savings from the rec ground that has come in under budget and the cemetery fence, which has come in under budget, that gives us $15,000, which is within the same funding scheme, so it's easy to reallocate to a project that's already within that.
Plus also a $2,000 donation from the church to
So I-
contribute to it.
We just go for
I'm
variation.
okay to go ahead with, we've got money to allocate.
Right, Councillor Gleeson?
When we look, yes, I'd say go ahead, Mr Mayor. When we're looking at the, in front of us here, completed within budget, it's written blue colour. All the blue colours are savings, aren't they? But it's not necessarily all Works for Queensland, but
Correct.
it's all the blue for savings.
We've got it as green, but Yes, if you said it, please, the same thing, yep.
So on the right-hand side, it shows the funding sources.
Generally, funding sources. I'd like to see the project go ahead, and I'm sure that we could find the money somewhere on a lot of those blue-green lines.
Yeah, our job's to go and reallocate. We'll go and find all the projects and do the variation reports and.
So, that shed, we
Well,
agreed to carry it forward.
and increase the budget to 35.
35.
Councillors, sorry, I didn't get to you, Councillor Peebles.
No, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to find the CEO and management to find the extra money, but can I just ask, how did we come up with the budget figure of 20 when it was 35? Is that just something we plucked, or we probably did a bit of homework on these?
It was the actual extra work with doing the whole concrete area for the floor. That was the extra, the scope of it.
The original scoping was for the awning.
Yes, 20 for the awning.
Yeah.
So, but we didn't factor the floor in.
It wasn't requested at the time, but it has been subsequent.
Yep.
And the 20 at the time was an indication from the shed builder that did the shed to Damien that he could get it done for 20. The fact that it's 25 is probably just reflective of where steel prices have been from March 21 to now.
Okay.
Right, so the carried forward and the budget increase to 35. Next one is swimming pool Aramac. Same thing, it's referenced in Paula's report because the parts are still got about a 5-week cruise, haven't they, coming our way?
Yeah.
So it's in process.
September.
That's not really a decision, that one, that's committed. We don't really, we can't back away from that because we've already ordered it. So we just agree to carry that. I mean, it's going forward because execution will be next year. This year, sorry. Do we need more money? Hang on, word. Do we need more money? Is it going to be delivered on budget?
Yeah, we've got more money in the next budget, I'm pretty sure, 23. For the shade, isn't it?
We have put in, Mr. Mayor, 160,000 from the last CIP in Aramac.
So that this carried forward line will be combined with the new line to finish the project. Good. Priority flood cameras.
Kristen talking.
Fire away.
So these are dual funded by council and TMR, and QRA have matched that. So it's a total of $200,000, not $150,000. Council commitment doesn't change; it still remains as 50 TMR.
And this has not been processed just to lack of resources to do it, or we're waiting on the stars to all align with QRA and TMR?
Correct.
Okay. Objection to carrying it forward? None? Done. Next goal, water. Goal 2, water.
I've got one more on that page. Flying Fox management plan.
Sorry, it wasn't.
All right, this is my problem for trusting the colours.
What colour is it, councillor?
White is a shame.
Do we need it, Mr.
You've allocated 25 grand for flying fox management plans. Haven't done them yet.
It's council's money. Go.
It's, the state government does have funding available for flying fox management plan. We just haven't applied for it.
I don't know when they're going to come back, Councillor Gleeson, but they are going to come back. I think we should leave it in the budget, but action it if and as required. So if we apply for the grant and get it and we put something together, so be it. Could be 10, 15, 20 years ago, I don't. I just know that they're very complicated things to get moved if you don't have some sort of legal car.
Okay.
Can I move on now, Debbie?
Yeah, just give me the nod.
Acacia Street Bore.
That's automatic carried forward.
It's a project underway. The area of that needed to be completed by the 30th of June was the component that was funded by LRCIP, and it has been done. It is now the final fit out section of that wall was being funded by council revenue, correct?
Yep.
So Matt looking at me with the crossword.
It's loan funds.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it was. If it's completed, because I think LRCIP wanted us to, through Mr. Mayor, complete this project before 30th of June.
Yeah, the element that was funded by them, the actual sinking of the borehole was completed. It's only is that right, Brett?
The augmentation now. So that component there, the 600,000 is the claim part with LCIP.
But they paid it.
They had paid us 50%, they're in the process of paying the other 50% of the LRCIP 1 and 2.
Okay. So councillor, I'm happy to carry that forward to finish that off, otherwise we're going to have a ball that's not connected.
Yep.
Right. Carry forward. It's not necessarily known at this stage whether we need more money because there's still elements of the design of the pump to come, is that correct? So we're happy to leave that budgeted figure. Next one is the SCADA and telemetry system. We've already approved this, so it has to be carried forward. We knew that was being carried forward when we did it. Sewage treatment plant stage 1.
It's in progress now. Yep. It's design and construct.
Is it enough money? Stage 1? We know the costings.
Yes, so I can get an update on that, Mr. Mayor, but there's been no change or nothing indicated as yet that would change that.
Okay. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Stage 2, trickling filter.
Same again, Mr. Mayor.
In every way, so no more money needed, but it's all underway.
Correct.
SCADA and telemetry is the same as above for water. No more on that page, Debbie?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Rural roads, look, we even need to discuss this. This has to happen. This was a lump sum figure. We know what's happening. This is flood damage rehab 2021. It's identified in Chris's report for this meeting which elements of this are complete or not. And Craven Road, now this is an approved roads to recovery project. However, I do believe that 500 is not enough. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, I've actually been a little bit caught unawares with this particular project. I'll be speaking with our consultants with regards to this, as I'll also be speaking with our senior work supervisor Alpha on Thursday. At this stage, I'll have to assume that it's enough. I don't have any further information.
Sorry, the budget is 650.
Yeah.
That's what we put into the roads to recovery program.
Yeah, and it was going to be spent over 150 in a year. Yeah, but we never actually spent any of that 150. Is that right? Or maybe a little bit.
We did heritage, heritage clearances.
So it's just to carry forward with the new budgetary process.
How much? Sorry, Jenny.
Chris was, Mr. Mayor, Chris was just asking about it because it's in the roads to recovery program.
Yeah. So we have acquitted some of that already. Sorry, Shane, I didn't hear you question it, but we have acquitted some of that money.
I thought I had that, Mr. Mayor, I thought I had actually bought the program scheduled with me, but I haven't, but I can quickly get it up. We haven't spent a great deal on that one.
Is there, so we're carrying it forward. It's a great project we have. We're always doing it over 2 years. We're right with that.
We spent
20,000. Is there, decision we won't know till later, but is there unallocated roads to recovery money, Jenny, at this stage? Like future stuff that they haven't required us to allocate yet?
To you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we have got unallocated funding, and yes, we need to put those work programs in. We're in discussions with the Director of Work Service on that.
So when that comes to council for decision, if there's more money required, because the road to recovery funding will come to council for decision, there'll be possibly, if we need to top that Craven Road job up to see it completed, because the scope was to complete the missing link, which is the gap between two pits of bitumen, it's about 3 point something kilometres.
Yep.
If more's required to finish that job off, we've got funding we can pull.
part of the delay, councillors, for that section of road is because we had to realign it. We're realigning the road, which means you have to do cultural heritage clearances and environmental clearances.
There's also been a small problem with a $10 million Capricorn highway job. Sorry.
That's not important.
No, not at all, not at all. But it has meant that it hasn't been as high a priority because our construction crews are not chasing a, $2 or $3 job funded by, we've got it elsewhere, so.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Councillor, please.
With the, we're looking at this, and the main reason we're looking at this is for the carried forward, to approve the carried forward. Can we come back to some of the overspent and talk about it later on with the Director of Works, or have a quick glance at it now on the way past?
Let's do both. Let's have a quick glance, and if it's more relevant to when there's two councillors back in the room, we'll just hold discussion, but yeah, go.
Well, just step back one line. Currajong Drive, highway access, it's $100,000 over budget. At TIDS, is the council got to prop up, is the Buckhorn Regional Council got to prop up that extra 100,000, or where does that extra 100,000 come from?
Yes, that's council.
So we have a base allocation of TIDS every year of 200,000, and then once every 4 years or 3 years we get a big job given to us. So this year we only had a base allocation. No, we didn't. Sorry, we had two. We did have a big job, but we also had a base allocation job, and that was where we applied that, and the job came to more than we had funding to do. And Currajong Drive is the access to the ski park.
And the one in the R2R funding, it's 51,000 on one overspent, so that's come back to, that comes out of the Buckhorn Regional Council.
Which one was that one, sorry?
So that's
So typically, look, without even, okay, so not even identifying that, so it's, that program runs over a 4-year program. So what we've experienced with a lot of those particular projects, and I'll speak directly to the resealing, for example, is there's been a significant, so a rise and fall component within that contract allows for rise in bitumen costs. I think when that tender was awarded back in, it would have been September, October last year, came in at a price probably close to 1.1 million. I think the total price in the end, the actual price came out probably closer to 1.2. So it would have been close to $100,000 in that. So what it will impact is the delivery of R2R works for the remainder of this program, which expires in 2024. So we'll have to shorten other elements up to cover some of those costs. But there is a fair bit of fluidity with your R2R, and you are forecasting quite a long time out. So what we'll typically do is juggle those around to make best fit how we're going to get them into a program each year.
in short terms, if we run over an R2R job, unless it's in the last year of the agreement, we just pull the money that we haven't allocated for to cover the overrun. It's not council money like the TIDS job is council money unless we've applied R2R as well. There's rules around that, isn't there?
But we usually decide what projects we put in R2R too.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time. They've got to come to council.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But all of those did. They just ended up being...
But all I'm thinking about, Sean, is that if we're going to take money off this, well, Mr Mayor, thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Is that what you're going to say? Given we've got all the formality here.
You didn't hear me. But if we're going to take funding off projects that are out there to cover these ones, those projects are going to miss out too. So.
Well, that's why they aren't allocated yet. We wouldn't be taking it off an allocated project, Jenny. We'd be taking it off money that's sitting in reserve that we haven't yet allocated.
To you, Mr Mayor, that's up to the scheduling, yeah.
Well,
To you, Mr Mayor, all the
we could do
projects
either,
up
I
to
guess.
30
Yeah,
June,
Correct.
bar the Craven Road one, have all been completed. So there's no altering or changing the projects that have been finalised in last financial year.
no, but
Those future ones.
They're going to new projects, Mr Mayor.
I know you're coming from Councillor Peoples, but we claim, say for that one that was 106,000 over, we claim the entire amount through the Roads Recovery Program? Is that not just the budget cost?
To you, Mr Mayor, no, we only claim what is actually put into the project schedules.
So we can amend to claim extra.
Yeah.
But we did.
We needed to Mr Mayor, we needed to have made those variations prior to the claiming, and the period is very short, and if we don't get the information in time, we actually have to make the claims. So the program opens for, say, 3 weeks for you to do that work.
So just on this schedule alone, that has been on this year's works alone, that's $167,000 that we didn't claim through R2R that we just wore the hit on. Because we are 106,000 over on reseals, we are 51,000 over on Ash Street rehab, and we are $10,000 over on Pine Hill. Although, what's to go with Texas? We're 54 under there. Should that be carried forward, or have we finished that job?
That's finished.
So
That's the one I spoke to Kevin yesterday.
There's only,
He said there's a minor bit of work left.
with Flood Rock to go there, I believe.
That's finished.
So we can only claim the 45, we can't claim.
So that is a saving.
There's 50 savings, but we're still, we'll say 50 because there's a bit to go on there still. But we still, so can you go back, Jenny, and just explain that window for closing? So if we approve a project, right, so we got the contract for reseals, and we knew before we started that we were 100,000 over, which, well, we wouldn't know when we approved it, but we certainly knew before they started work because the rise in material costs would have had to have been agreed to by the CEO. Is that too late? When's the window? Can we lodge a claim over and above what we originally estimated before they start work?
To you, Mr Mayor, we have to make a variation to that work schedule.
Does that have to be done within a certain time frame?
To you, Mr Mayor, no, the work schedules can be done at any time. The window is for doing the quarterly returns. So the window from the 30th of June, it opens in about the 8th of July, I think it was, and it closes by the 31st.
That's for the returns.
Yes,
But
you can go
for-
and put it, yes, Mr Mayor.
But for the actual scope, like the job itself, we can change that at any time.
To you, Mr Mayor, you have to make a variation to the schedule. Yes.
But once you've completed the job on the system, then you can't go back and vary it.
No, but we knew that was going to be more before we started, because we would have had the resales. I'm just looking at that one, like, that's a given. So the money could have been claimed through the system, but hasn't been.
Well, we can, I think there was some extra roads in that one, wasn't there? So we had to add at the last minute as well, so whether we can claim those.
Yeah, there were. So I'm stepping back out of my role here. So this is information that precedes my time here at council. But yeah, there were certainly some additional roads that were identified by council that they wanted to do. So when those were put forward as variations, they were approved at the time.
They were approved by us, but they weren't submitted as the schedule of work, what roads wasn't updated.
See whether they're in the schedule or not. See, you put in what you think you're going to spend on each road. You put in the details into the schedule. That's what you're going to claim at the end, unless you make a variation to that schedule.
But that variation can occur right up until you've completed the job. Phil, it's quick. It's a job complete, please payments.
It's too late.
Yeah, that's right, but none of these jobs would have been a surprise. We've issued tenders for these to be fixed, like concrete supply, bitumen supply. We knew at the point we signed an order, that's more than we had funding for. And I can sense two councillors are not listening because they're distracted. What's happened?
Well, we've both got different agendas.
I actually agree. I think I've got some different information too.
Yeah, I can't find it.
All right, let's.
To you, Mr Mayor, would it be helpful if I downloaded the R2R work schedules that are in the system? I've just got to log into their portal, so it takes a little bit of fitting. And share that with you, for you to share with all the councillors.
Yes, but I want to adjourn the meeting till we can straighten our agendas out first, because we're all, that schedule would be very important to us, but I want to make sure we've all got the same information first.
That's what
Okay, so we're back in open meeting. Councillors have rectified their agenda identification. Debbie? It's not an issue, it's just they were looking at a report in a different section. So, but what we are being now presented. Okay, it's two things. Samad, can you please speak to Courage on Drive?
Mr. Mayor, we had this query from the council before for Courage and Drive, and then we adjusted it to 187, which was the actual spent on it. There's other rec park costs which were caught up in that account, which we have identified, but I hadn't journaled them out yet, so that's why that figure pops up to be over budget, but it's 187,000 in
Okay.
actual spent on that item.
Yep, good. So that's not an overspend. So it's not relating to a carried forward, but we're doing the project review as we go. And councillors that are out of the room had declared interest in that as well. So we're not out of order. And we're just let Debbie catch up here. She needs to know that council people's left the room whatever time I reopen the meeting. You got that, Debbie?
No.
So that would have been 12:06,
yep.
6 or 7, yeah. Councillor Peoples was absent. Did you have some information on your stick for us?
Only the reports that we were looking
Which
at.
we've already got.
Yeah,
Okay.
which
Jenny's
we've read.
looking at rates to recovery. Brett, it's an important point that councillors probably knew but need to be reminded of regarding program rules for roads to recovery and council spend, without getting into the nitty gritty percentages, just to highlight high level thing.
Yes, council, as part of the commitment through roads to recovery funding is that we don't reduce our own source expenditure, so we don't. Roads to recovery has to be on top of what we would normally spend. So we can't just stop spending our own money and use all roads to recovery for our road maintenance. So it really is about betterment to our roads, so that's why we put it into sealing roads or doing curbing, channeling, actually improving the roads that we've got, so that so underlying we still maintain our expenditure.
Reseals clearly fit within that because they are something that council could easily choose not to do in lieu of, say, maintaining the running surface of an unsealed road. And council, when we received some significant or doubling effect in effect for 2 years in a row, and we had a significant works program, we chose to bring forward, the council chose to bring forward its road resealing program and help us get rid of the time pressure to spend that money. But we're back to now only a normal allocation of R2R, and it is applied moving forward to capital upgrades of roads. You know, as we identified here, sealing Craven Road, the rehab of Ash Street to Maple, which is completed, and the floodway upgrade. So those sort of things are bread and butter for R2R. All right. We'll have a look at the rest of R2R when Jenny can get us that scheduling stuff, but it would be beneficial to know how much is allocated and whether there's going to be the room when we get to a decision on Craven Road to finish that job off within the boundaries of R2R. Our rural road maintenance, just on that same point Brett raised, did go up in this budget. It's increased from where it was.
From 1.2 to 2 million this year, Mr. Mayor.
Which is good. Carrying forward Settlers Park Road access. Damien, if I could go to you just briefly on this. This was identified by the senior work supervisor as the turnaround area in front of the toilets where the caravans pull up. It hasn't occurred yet, has it?
No, it's in the, it's being looked at the moment. I think it's one of the projects the senior work supervisor is going to talk to go with Chris on Thursday, I believe.
I didn't step outside the chain there intentionally, Chris, sorry, but you're happy to just, are you happy for that to remain in and we'll look at that moving forward?
That's fine.
It's his budget.
No, that's why it's identified here, to carry forward. So we're happy to carry that forward? I've got a cord, yep. Right, next page. Stopping bays. This was delayed, and have we had permission to do that? It's got tourism written there, but is it a TMR tourism project?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yes.
So that is going to happen now?
It's being undertaken as we speak, Mr. Mayor.
Has to be carried forward.
Been previously reported as being incorrectly previously being reported as being completed until the senior work supervisor had come back from some significant leave.
Okay, so it's going to be right.
Should be complete by next week.
Village green lighting, Mark Alden, Jenny.
Awaiting, Mr. Mayor, awaiting the contractor to finalise the product. I do keep reminding, I'm doing some research myself at the moment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so this is for a funding program that delves out to 24 councillors. You won't have any objection to that being carried forward? You don't, they're very good. And the same applies, Damien, for Alpha Gates, that's at 22-24, but it's Shane, something that's going to come to us through this new project.
New project, we're using Damien as the first example of how it's going to work.
First example is that legal speak for guinea pig.
Yeah. Yes.
No. And sculpture trail safety upgrade. Who's got carriage of this?
Mr. Mayor, that's sort of in limbo about who's responsible, so I think it'll be District Manager Aramak.
Is this There we go, thrown straight under the bus.
With the Director of Works.
Is this to action the critical safety items identified in the structural audit report?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
which happened prior to you joining us?
Yeah, I learned about it yesterday.
Yeah, I couldn't find the report yesterday, but I've got it somewhere.
Sure.
It's got to be done. That one's has to be done.
No, we're not blocking that out. It's to make remember we received the structural engineering report that did an audit of the safety trail, sculpture trail, where those assets are located on council-owned land, which not all of them are, of course. Either the road reserve or our road reserve. And there was the rectification cost to make them safe in totality was $20,000 to stop the structure falling on someone and killing them on our road, basically. More question around that, Councillor Gleeson?
No, it's right, Mr Mayor, you've answered good enough, I think. Thank you.
And community housing purchase of units. We've formally requested the right to do this, however we have, as in written to the department, however we did offer 280 because if you remember that when we handed the budget down we offered 200, they wrote back to us, said well 280 is what you'll need, so we've written again for 280. So if you do choose to carry this forward, may I respectfully suggest that you increase the figure to 280. In fact, given that we've already spent 3.5, you probably should increase it to 290. Are we in carrying it forward or no?
Sorry, you've lost me, Mr Mayor.
5 for governance.
Top of 5, governance, community housing.
Oh, sorry, yes, thank you.
Okay. So you've formally resolved that we offer to buy these, so sort of suggesting we have to carry it forward. Is everybody okay?
Yeah.
And are you okay that we increase the budget for this in total to 290, accepting that 3.5 of it's already been spent?
Yep.
Is that enough of an increase, Paul? 290k. Approved.
Well, Mr Mayor, sorry, I think we already included in there.
In a new budget.
Yeah, it was already in there, sorry, so we probably not, even though it's got carried forward there, it's,
Some were in.
we'd already indicated that was 280 in the new
Can
budget.
somebody open the budget? Yeah, but once again, 280 won't be enough because we've already spent. 280,000 new money? No,
80,000 new money.
that's not enough either. Let's make it. When we adopt this budget amendment here in a moment, we'll ensure that that line item, whether it's in the current budget or carried forward, reads as 290 total.
Right.
Right, that's it.
Mr Mayor, we've got $10,000 there for a variance in the washdown bay at Alpha. That's another 10,000 we can put towards the venture.
Except, we could, but that's a good saving because that was our money.
Yeah.
Whereas the other savings we've identified within grant programs, so that can be reallocated, Works for Queensland from other jobs onto that one, and that $10,000 can stay in our back pocket.
Oh, no, okay.
But you're right, it's project coming under budget.
Got another one there.
Yeah.
Workshop.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were moving on.
I wasn't meant to move on to
Yeah,
what
right.
you have on screen, but you're
Oh,
right.
sorry.
Workshop extension, there's still issues to be resolved there. So we'll leave that in the budget while the issues are resolved.
Yeah,
Is that enough money?
probably not, but we don't know what the total cost will be yet, so I'd rather bring a report back to council with the whole project
And then we can update the budget for that
at your quarterly budget review.
when we know more.
It's to do with the planning, Mr Mayor. It's to do with the planning and
That compliance with buildings, where we
Compliance.
allocate, what the impacts are, because it's a bigger picture than just that.
thank you.
So future report, that included in this. All right, before we move on, Jenny, who's talking us through what's on the screen? Sorry, I've never seen one of these before, so you'll have to help me.
Scroll right to the bottom. Because they're all approved. The newest projects are at the
So
bottom.
to you, Mr Mayor, the project stays, everything stays in there for the life of the project.
Okay,
So this is the whole of the work schedules from the start of this particular project.
like a diary of what you've done and a
Yes.
journal, or
Yes.
a forward work calendar
So
of what
it
you're doing.
stays on the
Was it stalled?
It won't do.
Roads. Here we go.
So the last project in the, so it's a, Roads to Recovery is a 5-year program, so you can see it's 2019 to 2024. Our total allocation over that period is 7.7 million. So we can spend that however we like over that 5 years. So each year we sort of do roughly a fifth of the money, but
Sorry to interrupt, does the 7.7 million include the additional
Yes.
allocation?
Yes. So the last project there you can see is Ash Street, so that's the drainage out the front here. We allocated the 150,000, but as you can see, that went, it was cost 200,000. And I think we've claimed, is that completed? Jenny, is that claimed?
Yep.
And then if you scroll back up one.
Sorry.
page.
So we put that in as a $150,000 project, and then when it was completed, we claimed 150 because we would have had to demonstrate that it cost us at least 150, and it was easy in this case because it cost us 201. At what point could we have amended that 150? Or up until what point, I should say?
up until that claim had been done.
July return.
The 30 June return.
And the process to have amended that would look like what?
So you go in, and if the scope of works doesn't change, you can change the amount. So Roads to Recovery means that Roads to Recovery will fully fund a project cost. It doesn't have to be split. But I'm just going to get it up to. So yeah, it's prior to that
So
last.
this one, it could have, because the scope didn't change, we could increase the amount that we wanted to claim,
But you're allowed to change the scope as well.
but that's a
To
more
Mr. Mayor, then you have to go through
complicated process.
you have to remap it and you have to go through another approval process.
Mhm.
So yeah, if you change, yeah,
So this one's a simple one, just cost got more.
that would have been simple.
So I'm just looking at this from a process point of view now, as much as anything. Right, we'll go on with another example. All right, yep.
So this is the reseal program. So we had to allocate which roads would be resealed, so that's that 1.1 million.
1.206.
Whatever.
Oh,
Yep, so the major component was Eastmere Road, 750,000, Stagmount Road, 148. Did a little bit in Willow Street. If you keep scrolling, you can. Craven Road. So that Craven Road was, I'm pretty sure that was an extra that we brought forward.
Drawn up bit you're talking about?
no, that's just
No,
resealing
separate.
already.
So that was part of the
That
resale.
wasn't in the original program.
It's the first bit of it, from the rolling on.
Reseals, Beach Street, Ballanidi Road.
Yeah, so that's all good.
Reseal.
So that one would have been complicated to add to if we added a street or a road to it that wasn't originally identified when it was lodged. Even if it's a reseal project, if it's not the chainage or the street, it can be done, but it's an issue. But if we stuck to what we've said and the costs went from 1.1 to 1.2, we could have changed what we claimed so long as we did it prior to lodging the acquittal request or the payment request. Is that right?
Yes, Mr.
So this is what I wanted to show you. So Craven Road, this is the realignment. There's 650,000 that we've allocated.
Yep.
But we haven't claimed it.
Yep.
Because we haven't done the work. So it's already in the program as 650, but if it was going to cost 700 or 750, then we can change that to 750.
So long as
the scope stays the same.
So long as what's written in that second column next to 64, change 14470 to 18130 doesn't change.
That's right.
And I would imagine there'd be a little bit more than that box because it would, when we put it in, we would have had to say bitumen to a 6 metre or a 4 metre or 8 or a certain standard of bitumen. So long as we're not changing our construction methodology significantly, but the cost is more, we can claim more.
Yes.
So what I want to come back to then is, if we look at the very bottom example, where we said it was going to be, we estimated at 150, and I've got no problem, because we would estimate it and lodge that 6 to 12 months before we did it, Jenny. Possibly longer.
Yeah,
To get it approved as a project, so
it was in there for a while.
material costs rise and fall. I get that. I understand that. I just wonder whether we need to have a process to review whether we claim the extra amount rather than paying for it. In some cases, depending on the volume and size of it, council might be happy to wear the 50 grand, so that we can keep some money in the outer years, as you identified before, Councillor Peoples. But we probably just need to put a process in place before our job so we can get an estimation. It's really easy where we're engaging somebody else to do the work because we know the cost at the point of engaging them. Where we're doing it, prior to completion, we may need engineers, director of works to come and say, hey, this drops.
It's an escalation point. At what point do we know it's going to cost more and we report it back?
Well, main thing is
When we do the return, we
up the ask.
Yep.
Because we might say, well, no, look, I don't want to take an extra 500,000 from outraged recovery because that's going to leave us at around 6 million. Put us to around 6 million, and that only leaves us $1 million to spend over 2 years. But I think there needs to be a reconciliation point prior to the claim going in so we know whether we want to up the overrun or not. Up the claim to cover the overrun or keep it. That was the only thing I wanted. That report highlights it perfectly, though. Thank you. And what we probably could do is have a look at that each budget preparation time so that we remind ourselves of where we're at. Are we finished with this review?
Just one quick question.
Sorry,
Mr.
yes,
Mayor.
yeah.
Just reading up there, it says paid today. Does that mean we've got all that money or is there still more to come?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Up there it had written 7 point something million paid to date. So is that the total amount paid up front or we've still got more to
we've
come?
claimed
5.5.
5.5. So it's 2 point something million still
To spend.
Yeah,
to claim.
That's the total pool's already there.
Yeah,
It's allocated, but it's not paid.
there you go. See, our allocation is 7749, but our balance paid to date is 4893. Well, that's actually old, isn't it? Oh, well, that's pretty close. We've still got 2.856 to be paid.
Because we've got that 650 in there. It's allocated, but not.
So yeah, there's still money, quite a bit coming our way over the next 2 years. 22, 3, 23, 4.
To you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know the methodology for payment. It's a methodology obviously used by the federal government. So what we report on when we report is we have to report the actual expenditure to the date at the quarter, and then we have to predict what we're going to spend in the next quarter. So they pay on any shortfall in what we've expended, and then they pay a percentage on predicted. Methodology we don't have. So it's quite a complex little system, yeah. And they don't, to you, Mr. Mayor, they don't like small projects, so anything under $10,000, yeah. You get the phone calls as you're entering them. Why do you think you don't? Why do you think you don't? So yeah, it is quite a complex sort of program.
Isn't that ironic? Look at our line two. Withdrawn. And yet we're still talking about that same floodway today.
Who withdrew?
I don't know, the previous council.
Oh, and to Mr Mayor, unless it's just being put, so if there's something wrong with it, there's some you can't do, you have to withdraw them and redo them, it could be further down. It might have been a change of scope.
That's definitely been
Yeah, see, it's a change of
I
scope,
remember
so
that.
it's gone in, yeah, so it's
Years
on,
ago.
yeah,
So withdrawn and re-entered as a new
Yeah.
project.
yeah.
Okay. Still a problem, mate. Not much of it left, it's been washed away.
Yeah, I recall hearing something about the potential conversion of the creek at some point, Mr Mayor.
this one on now.
Yeah, I'll show you some photos of it, it's
Yeah, sure.
just about all gone. Which one?
We do plant while
We didn't do
last
it.
page.
I did. Sorry man, you left it out, I don't have it. I'm joking, it's here somewhere.
Land program still, land program.
Does anyone wish to not bring forward? Well, the mower's been ordered, the tip truck has also been ordered. We're waiting a body delivery there, could be still a couple of months, which is the water tank. And the cocktail spreader, what's the go with it?
It's with the truck too.
Oh, sorry, of course it was
Covers all
me,
the
sorry.
combination.
So no one's objecting to go forward to those, right? Can I have a resolution, please? Next page, sorry, Terry.
3-5.
The council carries forward the projects identified in the report into those areas with the amended figures. Louise. Thanks, councillor Hanson. Seconded councillor Gleeson. And we may put, because those amended figures are not what were made public, can we've amended them on the run, can we put that as an addendum to these minutes, please? As we amended. Those in favour? Carried. 5-0. Lunch.